Welcome to another Decorative Lighting Company YouTube video. In this video, we're going to run through a complete commercial installation of our floodlight system. I'm just going to quickly do a run through all the parts here so you can have a better understanding of how the products work and how they fit together. Starting from the power supply, we have an Australian certified driver here. It's a 24 volt power supply. It has an Australian plug on the end and it has our female connector which has the holes on that side. This then plugs into the color controller. The floodlight system that we're using today can be changed through colors. You'll see that you have some level of control on the module, but you have much more flexibility with the remote control. It is a radio frequency controller, meaning it is simply point and click, and that's how that works. So that plugs into your power supply. Next, we have the floodlights themselves. The floodlights include an input and an output. So quite simply, you plug the first floodlight into your color controller, and then you've got the opportunity to either close off your system or move on to the next one. The last thing that I'll just note is that we do use extension cords between the floodlights. This is great. It's a daisy chain connectability system, meaning you can have your floodlight, you can have some blank lead between that, and then your next floodlight, and so forth, giving you a lot of flexibility and allowing you to do a complete arrangement from one single power source. We hope you enjoy this video. Let's pass it on to Caleb. Alrighty, Caleb, so what are we doing today?
Today we're at a house on the Gold Coast about to install some RGB garden lighting in between each of the trees here, just to get a nice even spread of light. So just to explain a little bit about the input and output of the light fittings, this is a daisy chain system, meaning you can continue and plug into another light fitting. Here we have the male, and here we have an extension lead with the female output. So you simply just line up the two teeth and it's plug and play. What I like to do normally is place the lights first and then I start running the cabling. So I just want to find the middle point just so we get a nice even spread. Yes, we've got a nice little garden stake here, and we're lucky that the soil is quite nice and soft so we can just push it down easily. Being sure to push here rather than on top of the light so we don't damage anything. Now I'm going to install the power supply, the color controller, and start running out the cabling. First we need to install the power supply. We've got a nice easy plug here. So we just try and look for a nice clean and discreet place to put the power supply. So I'm going to choose this conduit here. That way it'll be nice, clean and tucked away. So sometimes we use screws to screw in, especially if it's wood, but in this instance we have a concrete wall, and because we're fixing it to this conduit, I'm just going to use some zip ties. So now I'm going to plug in the color controller. I like to get the color controller in place before I start tidying up the cabling, just to know where it all sits. Now with the color controller, it has to be in range with the remote. So if we hide it away too much, they will have less range with the remote. So we want to make sure that it's nice and visible. I've just installed the color controller. These color controllers are radio frequency, so there is a maximum range with the remote. So this customer should be able to stand on the opposite side of their pool, and that will give them a nice reach. Another good thing about this remote, if you do happen to lose the remote, there are buttons on the actual controller itself. Easy as that. Now since we have the power supply and the color controller in place, I'm going to start running the cabling. Here we have an 8-meter lead. That should give us enough length to get to the first light fitting. Now that everything's in place, I like to tidy up the cabling. We don't want to leave it messy. So I normally just find a nice little way to bundle it up and use a few zip ties. Now I've got a little garden spade and some pegs, so when we're running the cabling out, where we can, we peg it down. Yeah, so now we've plugged in our first light fitting, as you can see it's going. Then we just need to link each of the light fittings together. So for that we're using 3 meter leads. Again, like the light fittings, I like to run the cabling out first and then bury it in nice and tidy. As you can see here, we have a bit of excess cabling. So what we do then is we just like to bundle it up nice and tidy and then bury that under as well. So for the remainder of this installation, all we're going to be doing is continuing the cabling from each light fitting to the next until the job is completed. Now, since this will be the last light fitting of today's design, we will not be needing the female output. So what we have here is an end cap, simply just to cap off that end and make it rainproof. Now that we've completed the installation, I like to just do one final walkthrough to ensure that all the cabling is placed correctly and to pick up any rubbish that I've left over.
Our client was kind enough to let us to revisit their beautiful installation at nighttime. As you can see here, I'm demonstrating the use of the remote control. You can simply turn it on and off, and using the color wheel, you can achieve various colors and color mixes to suit what you like your lighting display to be on. The important thing to note with this system is it has a memory function, meaning whatever you set it as, if you turn your gear off and turn it back on, it will retain that. What I'm doing now is going through some of the functions. This color controller has a number of preset functions which go through certain colorways, and you can adjust the speed, which is what the S plus and the S minus means. Now, if you set it to a single color, you can also adjust the brightness. So the B plus and the B minus on the remote controller for this setup is brightness up and brightness down. And as you can see, I'm turning the brightness all the way back up, and we'll zoom in just so you can see it a little bit better. Sometimes reducing the lighting can have a bit of a different effect, but really each setup's different. So try our system and see what works for you. The last thing to note about the system is it requires 3 AAA batteries in order for it to run. Just slot them in the back and off you go.